You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Mr. Wayne Green.
Yeah, hi.
So Wayne, tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do professionally?
It's really underwhelming, actually. I live in a small seaside town in North Devon in the UK, and I work full time. I'm a lab technician at a factory. Like I said, very boring. But I play a bit of music on the side, go out playing in the pubs, doing some acoustic covers, write a bit of my own stuff. And I've literally just started a podcast about sort of 6 weeks ago, rather. And it's just kind of not too dissimilar to this, but, just a couple of funny features and get some of my friends on and just talk about random topics.
So I have to ask, because you're also a lab technician and also a musician. Now, do you write songs or do you do any extensive research on why do you guys drive on the wrong side of the road?
Well, yeah, I can't really say too much about that, but I've been to America twice. Sorry, I went to Las Vegas, and I was blown away. Not so much by the fact that you guys drive on the wrong side of the road, but by you've got like so many lanes. How many lanes do you need?
Oh my God, it's too much sometimes. And even then, people still can't drive. Like you'll have one dude going all the way onto the third lane to the left and he's going like 20 miles an hour, like 20 under the speed limit. And there's a dude in the middle that's like keeping up with him. And then there's a guy to the right that's going the same speed. So then you can't pass anybody. And you're just like,
Yeah.
There's three, like, do we need to build another lane? Like, I don't get it. But like, it's funny because every time I podcast with an Australian person or a podcast with someone from the UK or just another country, I'm like, why do you guys drive on the wrong side of the road? They're like, you drive on the wrong side of the road. I was like, yeah, we're doing it wrong. Well, I guess so. I've just been so used to it. I'm like, right, this is the right way because we're driving on the right side.
It's just, yeah. I mean, when we went to Vegas, I had every intention to hire a car and go out to the Grand Canyon, which we did, but we did that on a tour. Maybe go here or there, and I saw like all these lanes, and I just thought, no, this is too much for me. I don't think I'm confident enough to do it.
Wait, that was your first time in America? Was Vegas?
Yeah. We've been twice. We were really lucky because my fiance, she works at a place where they did this loyalty thing. If your company spends X amount of money with this company, you're eligible for these loyalty rewards. And it just, for a few years, it just happened to be flights and accommodation to Las Vegas for 4 nights. And we ended up getting these tickets twice. So we got to go for free, which was absolutely insane. It's the only time I've been to America, but lucky enough to go to somewhere like that.
I wouldn't say lucky. Like that's like probably one of the darkest parts of America. I would say Vegas. You got the Strip. I've been a couple of times. It's a lot of fun, but it's also really, really different from basically everywhere else in the States. Mostly because sexual stuff is just open to the public down there. Like there's strippers on the corner. I actually have a good story. They used to hand out I don't know if you know what Pokemon cards are or Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yeah. I'm a bit old to have appreciated them, but my stepson was into them.
They have naked girls on cards down there, like Pokemon cards. And I remember being a kid and my grandma took me and my cousins down there and they were handing them out on the street, but they wouldn't hand them to you if you were under the age of 18. But some dude I just walked up to him. I was like, can I get a stack of those? He just gave me a stack of naked girls cards. So we're back in our hotel room playing Pokemon with them. Like, yeah, blonde hot model, is 20 or 26 years old with 400% attack power. And then like we were doing that stuff. And my grandma was like, just threw them right in the fire. I was like, damn.
It's crazy because like after a certain time at night, you're walking down the strip and they're like flicking them on their hands, aren't they, to get your attention? They're like flick, flick, flick. And like the next morning you walk down the street and they're all over the floor. Before I assume someone goes along and picks them all up, but they're all over the floor. And
I'd sign up for a street sweeping job if I was working down there, dude. You imagine in the morning, you just got a porn collection. Like people collect Pokemon cards. Imagine having a binder filled with just naked girls.
Yeah, you could make some money on eBay, couldn't you?
It was funny because I was walking in front of my grandma when we were walking down the strip, and I was like stepping on the cards and dragging them with my foot. So she would be like, "Why are you dragging your foot?" I'm like, "No reason, no reason." She'd turn around and just pick up my freaking card that was under my foot and put it in my backpack. My cousin ratted me out. I was like, "No, man." Like I'm trying to get on airport security, and airport security's like, "What's with all these cards in your bag?" I'm like, "Shut up."
Oh no. Well, that's that's commitment. I like that.
Now, did you get to enjoy any of the sites like in Vegas? Did you go gambling? Did you do?
Uh, I, I went with my partner, so I didn't get to do sort of all the clubs and all that kind of thing because we were mainly there more of a sightseeing kind of trip. But we went to the Grand Canyon, which was absolutely fantastic. We got picked up by a coach from the hotel, and then it took us out. We didn't actually go to the Hoover Dam, but we could see it in the distance.
Dude, that is a long trip.
Yeah, it was. But the tour guide was so good. He knew I guess this is why he earns his money, but he knew everything about everything. He told us stuff about the history, how it was, founded basically, some of the wildlife, some of the mob scene. He knew everything about everything. So it made the trip kind of go quite quick, actually.
Did you take a double-decker bus through the tour?
No, it's just a standard coach. But
How about,
sorry.
so, because when I went up to the Grand Canyon at the first year I went, what they do when you go up to the actual Grand Canyon, when you're driving up the mountain, if you don't take a helicopter like some of those rich guys, they basically take you on this school bus, and it is the most uncomfortable thing in the whole entire world. Like you're just getting bumped side to side. You're going 5 miles an hour up the whole freaking Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
It feels like it takes like an hour and a half. And but on the double decker bus, when they're driving you around to get to the Grand Canyon, like to get to the actual place where they take another bus to take you up, and then when you go to the Hoover Dam, I was on a double decker bus, and the dude, like you said, amazing tour guide. I had this guy that was like the funniest dude, always made the trip kind of fly by, and it's not an easy trip. It's pretty freaking long. It's not something like there's a lot to see and a lot to look at, like if you like cactuses and all the range of cacti, but it is definitely a trip. I remember going to the Hoover Dam, and that was our last stop. And at this time, we had been gone all day. I was like, "Can we just go back home? Like, I want to go back to the hotel now."
Which hotel did you stay at?
Circus.
Oh, okay.
So,
we saw that. Yeah.
do you know what Circus is?
No, not really.
That is the spot to go if you got kids. Because they have an amusement park, a roller coaster on the second story of the building inside a giant thing called the Adventure Dome. So basically, we would just wake up at like 7 o'clock in the morning out of our hotel. Because, earlier than that, we probably wake up like 4 in the morning because our time zone is different on the East Coast compared to down in Las Vegas. And we just would go downstairs to see. First of all, we would see these old people that were passed out on these vending machines. These slot machines, just like still pulling the lever as they're just sleeping on the thing. I'm like, that's crazy. But we would run around the hotel, and then people were like, "Why are you awake right now?" We're like, "Oh, we're not from here. So this is our time. We're usually up." So we would wait for the amusement park to open up. And we just go and play laser tag and all these things all day. It's one of the coolest spots. That, and then when I went to go see Mandalay Bay, because they had the giant shark exhibit.
Oh yeah, we went to that, the Shark Reef Aquarium.
That's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, it was great. Where you can walk through the tunnel.
Yeah,
and they're swimming all above you, and that. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, we did that.
Did see my very first time I went and saw 311 live there, and that was something like I was still young. I didn't know who 311 was. I don't know if you know who 311 is.
No, I don't think I do.
They're a pretty popular like reggae kind of like punk band, and I'm kind of like watching. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I'm at a concert right now, and that's one of my very first concerts I ever went to. But it was like Vegas had so much, seeing the sign, taking pictures in front of it, and then they have In-N-Out Burger, which is not something that's popular on the East Coast, where they give you like these amazing burgers. And honestly, wasn't that good to me. Everyone's always talks religiously about it. I was like, it's just a burger. It's weird that they got a foot-long hot dog, but.
Well, you got to bear in mind, like in the UK. We've got our reputation, I guess, for being a bit sort of, I don't know if stiff upper lips the thing, but, straight-laced maybe, which isn't the case for all Brits. But somewhere like America is so big and just over the top in a good way that like you were saying about driving to the Grand Canyon and it being a long drive, that is such a novelty for someone like me who doesn't get to see that kind of scenery. So I can look at that all day, maybe for the first trip, you know. So you know, it's a completely different landscape. It's completely different culture to ours. You know, everything's excess, and you know, I love that. So you know, as far as the drive to the Grand Canyon, could have done that all day because we don't get to see cacti, you know, very often. And you know, I get what you're saying about Vegas being sort of the dark side of America. I know that's not real life, but it's kind of just like some huge, big theme park. And
well,
you know,
you get to see so much. First of all, going to see the Grand Canyon and then going in just to Vegas in general, like they all have their beauties in their own way. Like in particular, like I remember my grandma would she'd take photos like everything. You know, like the M&M factory that was in Vegas. All these like my cousin's all about like new popular shoes, the hot like new trends. He's 6 months behind me, so he's all like he's got a closet full of shoes. I'm like, you don't wear any of them. He's like, yeah, but I own them. I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't make any sense. So he has like literally a legit closet full of shoes. He was all about going to the Gucci store and all these like hot brand places, spending $400 on a pair of shoes, which I think is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But my grandma was always taking photos, the roller coasters, all the sites, trying to get as much memories as possible. But she was taking pictures of like, there was this giant black dude dressed up in a flamingo outfit and like looked like just like a girl kind of, and he was just walking around like, they call me Big Spanky, and like my grandmom's like laughing and just following her with a Polaroid or following him with a Polaroid camera. I'm like, you can't do that. And she's just like, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, see, that's Vegas has that type of kind of imprint on you, and then you go to Grand Canyon and it's something completely different. Like watching like I know you get lunch on top of the Grand Canyon. Like you can get that little reservation spot where you can sit and eat.
I think that's where we went actually. Like the Wallapai, is it? Is it the Wallapai?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like you sit down and you get to look out onto the Grand. That's something different, man.
Yeah.
Like at one point, my buddy started climbing down the thing. Like he started trying to climb down the Grand Canyon. I'm like, stop. Like you're going to get halfway and you're going to be like, wait a minute, this is a lot farther down than I think. Like it might not look like it's that far down. Like you might be like, that could probably take me a good hour to get down there. No. It's going to take you a lot longer than that. And I remember they asked us like, do you want to pay for the plane ride or not plane ride, but the helicopter trip to fly down there and actually land in the Grand Canyon? I'm like, I'm good. I don't even like airplanes.
We actually did that. So we got picked up on the strip from our hotel. We stayed at New York, and it took us to the edge of the canyon. And I think there were 8 of us on a coach full of 40 odd people that had paid for the helicopter ride. And you know, we're not wealthy or anything. We just do you get PPI over there? Payment Protection Insurance? Is that a thing?
I don't think so. I mean, you're talking to a kid that doesn't have medical insurance. So.
Okay. Well, there's been this big thing over here over the last so many years where if you're sold if you take out a loan or a credit card, there's a thing called Payment Protection Insurance. So if you find yourself without a job, this thing covers your payments and stuff if you've got no income. But it was being missold by all these companies. So when someone clocked this, there was this big legal thing where you could actually claim all this money back that you'd paid in. And my partner had got this payment back from this PPI claim. And that's what paid for our Grand Canyon trip, because that wasn't part of the whole flights and accommodation thing. So that was like a real treat for us, because that money came at a really good time. So we did that. We did the helicopter ride. Like I said, there were 8 people of the whole coach that paid for that. And it was fantastic. You know, they ferried us off the coach, threw us on a helicopter off the edge of the canyon, down into the canyon. We got on the boat and had a ride on the boat up the Colorado River with a guy called Nate, I think. And he'd moved there from California, I think. And him and his wife had just bought this, as he referred to it, patch of desert. And I think they built their own house there. And he loved it, you know. But yeah, so we flew back up the top and we had dinner at that kind of reserve. But something that was really interesting was the tour guide said to us that, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is kind of just my recollection of it. is that half what is it, the Wallapai Indians, their part of the Grand Canyon was given back to them so many years ago after it was taken off them hundreds of years ago by settlers or the government or whatever. He said something like this, and they were allowed to run it as they saw fit. And he said that there's two kind of areas. You've got the part that they run, which has got no railings and it's all pretty natural. And then the other side, which is run by the government or something, that's got railings and health and safety.
I know the other side has a skywalk. I went and did that one. I don't know if you did that when you were down there.
We actually went to it, but we didn't do it because the tour guide said if you've done the helicopter trip, then you've kind of had a really good experience. So you probably don't need to spend the $30 or so.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's fun to kind of walk out, but it's really scary because they make you put like things on your shoes so you don't scratch the glass, and then you're just looking down, afraid to step, like you're gonna fall immediately, even though there's probably like 8 layers of like really bulletproof glass. But yeah. I mean, it was a good experience since we didn't pay for the helicopter ride. But like, I can see that would probably be the more of the government side of it. When it comes to like the Native Americans, like they kind of monopolized on top of the Grand Canyon only because like when they got it back, they didn't keep it like this is natural land, this is like preservation. It more became like this is a way to get money too, and also be able to survive a little bit. Like, I mean, we just took our land and then just paid them in with casinos and stuff. We really didn't even give them a chance, and they just monopolized on top of that. Like, I don't know. It's a crazy world, man, because like you're talking about, like with like that thing being an extra bonus onto your like trip. Like there was only a select few of you guys in that coach ride that got to take that helicopter trip. It's like having an easy pass for Disney World. Like once you figure out you can get an easy pass that you can just cut in front of everybody in line and not have to wait a couple hours, like it just changes the game. But it gives you that added experience when you hop off the helicopter. You're like, yeah, motherfucker, I did that. Like, yeah.
yeah, definitely. And you know, we got to go a second time, but we didn't do the Grand Canyon the second time because we'd already done it. And you know, I could go probably once a month and it wouldn't get old. Something that was just so mind-blowing for me was just how vast it is. You were saying about how long it would take you to get down there if you walk down there. You know, we've got nothing like that. We've got beautiful scenery here for sure, but we've got nothing like the Grand Canyon. And I was stood on the edge of it just looking, trying to take it in, because I thought I'm going to go away from this, and if I don't consciously take in what I'm looking at, I'm going to regret it because I might never see this again. But I've never seen anything so vast and so just mind-blowing. You know, it was crazy.
It's something I definitely took a couple pictures on as soon as I was standing there, but then I put my phone down and tried not to be on it the whole time because it was something I really needed to take in. It was definitely like one of those moments like you're like, there's two things that popped into my head. One was like, how is this possible? And two, like it makes you kind of think of like, is there something else out there? Like I'm not super religious, but like I was like, this is a weird thing to like, it just felt like something that everything fit in the right place. And then you find out that it's when the earth plate shifted and it just created the Grand Canyon. Like it just shifted, like the earth just after years and years and years, just constantly, and just created this. It used to be like a giant actual like river and stuff. Like it used to be.
Yeah, sure.
And like, that's why there's only a little bit of water left at the bottom. But I'm like, that was all from a shift. And then like, it was just, you know, erosion or whatever it was. It just went down. I'm like, you hear stories of that. And then you hear about animals still living down in there. Like you think there's no life down in there, but there's plants, there's coyotes, there's everything, like just found a way down there to survive in this perfect little channel. And you see, it's like, damn, everything comes together. It was like looking at like a work of art. Like it felt like, this is like really crazy that all these just fit in the right place. Like it feels like any little blemish or anything you couldn't point out because it feels like it just naturally belonged there.
Yeah, it's definitely impressive. And well, I don't know if I'll get to go back. Hopefully I will. I'd like to do sort of Route 66 or something. I know that's probably a typical tourist thing to do, but I'd like to think that I'll get to go back there. But if I don't, the experience that we had was just amazing.
Now, what as a lab technician do you really do? Like, what types of things do you work on in the kind of the factory industry?
So it's actually an American company. I don't know if I can mention the name because it's.
You don't have to.
No. It's actually an American company, but it's filtration. So we are we make filters for the pharmaceutical industry and things like that. And what I do is just general tests just to make sure that there's nothing, that they're not integrally doing their job, but that there's nothing on them that can maybe contaminate the products, the company's, customers' product when they put it through the filter. So we just make sure, that what we're doing isn't going to contaminate their product.
So you're saying the pharmaceutical industry, like, so the drugs they're making, being able to use a proper filtration system?
Well, obviously everything has to be filtered through something to make sure that it's pure enough to be used for
Yeah, like the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, regulates a lot of our food nowadays. They have to do proper testing to make sure it's not going to contaminate or harm any individuals that are consuming it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's all that kind of thing. We do all sorts of things. We do filters for beer. We do filters for air. We've got two areas at the factory. We've got one that's pharmaceutical and one that's more industrial. So, but
that's something that goes in with what we're talking about, the Grand Canyon. Because if you think about air being filtered, like, people are like, what do you mean filtering air? It's just air. You breathe it. I'm like, no. There's a difference. If you go into a heavily populated city, like, let's say New York, or somewhere where there's a lot of people smoking, you know what is in New York that affects the people's lungs there?
It was smog or car fumes or
brake dust.
Is it?
Car brake dust, because there's so many cars and there's no space to actually drive it. Every time you go 1 mile an hour forward, you have to stop a second later because they're just bumper to bumper traffic. It's really like too many people just shoved in a spot. So I have actually people that are from New York that moved here to my state, and I work with them, and they're constantly puffing down cigarettes, just constantly all day long. I'm like, how do you smoke a pack a day and not have like this, this, like, they have a kind of raspy voice, but it's like they don't ever like sound like they're dying. Like me, after a cigarette, I'd be like,
yeah, me too,
like, out. But them, they're like, no, it's like, because we're from New York. I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, because brake dust, man. I'm like, what? And it's actually a study. They found that, like, if you live in New York after long-term exposure from brake dust, like, I've talked to people that went down there for 6 months or something. First thing they say is they adopt an accent, but like, kind of, like that New York, like, hey, what are you doing driving on the street? Like that type of thing. But then when they come back, they're like, yeah, it was really different to breathe the air here. And I experienced that with my grandma, because my grandma has asthma. So she lives out in the country, but when she goes into like the city or something, she'll need her inhaler. And then she'll, like, when we went to Hawaii, she didn't need it at all. It was just that there was no need for it, nothing. I'm like, there's something that people are glossing over, that you have to filter out your air too. There's like a part of the air that can be contaminated.
It's quite scary when you think about it. I don't suppose London's the same. I know London has got a lot of pollution, as have a lot of cities, but I've never been to New York, but obviously I've seen on films, I've seen TV programs and things like that. And, you do see those streams of traffic that are just red light to red light, all the way down the street. So it doesn't surprise me. But it doesn't surprise me that about the brake dust, but it surprises me that is the main cause of pollution. It makes sense as well.
Yeah, well, I'm from Ocean City, Maryland, so we have the benefit of having the ocean on one side of our town, and the other side is the bay. So we're surrounded by water. So you're basically screwed when it rains, because the water just raises up and then it floods the streets. But like, it's really strange. You wake up in the morning, I walk out my front door, next thing you know, I'm getting hit with a wave of just salt air. It's just like fills your lungs. You're like, wow, like it clears your sinuses. You don't smell anything. And then like, if I go to like a city, if I go to like Baltimore or something, I'm trying to walk around, I'm like, it's like harder to breathe. It feels like I have a stuffy nose. I'm like, this is different. Like, you just don't notice it. And I'm like, I wonder what that's got to be like for some person that lives out in Australia and then comes here. Like, it explains why like people in China, they wear the little sick masks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like surgical things.
They can't breathe. Like it's too much there. I'm like, this is where we kind of need to step back. Like, it's pretty, honestly, you might belittle your job a little bit. I feel like everybody does, but being able to think of like filtering things, like every job has like something that's really actually interesting about it. I actually got this kind of thing someone said. They were like, all you do is review interesting people and you podcast with interesting people. I'm like, dude, my podcast is open to everyone. But if you look up your actual job title, like for me being in housekeeping or something, I just say housekeeping at a hotel. But the actual thing for it is like professional cleaning advisor. And it's like this really long thing. I'm like, that makes me not sound like I'm in a shitty position. Like, it's like, and like, that's what I title it too. Like the episode will be like your job or whatever your profession is. And it definitely gives like a better outlook on your life or just job in general, which I think is definitely a good boost for people. But but I mean, it's interesting, man, because every job has like this one weird thing about it where like someone's like, what? Like you did that?
Yeah. And, I've done various things in the past. I was in retail for many years and managed just a shop and things like that. And I didn't actually start in the lab. I started on the shop floor. You have to wear these silly, we call them Smurf suits. So, literally just your face is showing because it's a clean room. It's all, you can't take anything external in there because it could contaminate the products. But I've been at the factory for almost 14 years, but I've been up in the lab for 4. So it's kind of still quite fresh to me. But if I look up my job description, it's quality control laboratory technician, which sounds amazing, but I've got no, qualifications for that. I just came away from school with just normal qualifications. I didn't do further education. So, it sounds a lot more impressive than it is. I was looking at, through some of your podcasts and stuff on my phone last night, and I started to doubt whether I should do it. I was like, oh my God, I'm so boring compared to these people.
Oh my God. So I need to change the description then, because if you
no.
If you hear them talk in the beginning, they're like, I just work as, I just work in like housekeeping. And I'm like, okay. And then I just actually look up the title of it and it's like, no, this is what your actual job is. Like, wow, that is my job. And I'm like, it was really actually strange because I'm like, I can figure like me podcasting with a homeless person. And I'm like, so what do you do professionally? And the guy's just like, well, I'm a professional minimalist survivor. And I'm like, oh, you're in minimalism. Oh, but you're not saying you're just homeless. You're a minimalist. Okay. Yeah, but
I love that. That's great.
It's a spin around for it. That's what I'm saying. But like, I tell people, because I actually get that a lot. A lot of people are like, I don't think I'm fit for your podcast. You have such amazing guests on. I'm like, these are just average, everyday folks, but that's what you're totally glossing over. Like people send me their credits to be on my podcast. Like I have 8 degrees. I have this. And I'm like, that does not mean anything to me. I podcasted with people from Reddit with the name Unicorn Fart 3. So it's like we all have something interesting about us that we just need to open up. That's what makes a person interesting. Like I'm boring and bland, to be 100% honest with you. I don't do a whole lot besides just talking with other individuals all over the world. And that's expanded my life so much because you learn so many different things.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you sort of reaching out, because you got to bear in mind that I started this podcast probably more than 6 weeks, maybe eight weeks ago, something like that. And it was based on just because I've got a reputation for just talking nonsense.
Same
mostly.
Here, man.
Yeah, well, it's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's a gift in a way. I know people that find it hard to talk and to talk to people. And we were having a conversation and about the theory that everyone's good at something. And I was talking to a friend, and I said, I don't really know what mine is. And he said, oh, maybe it's your music. And I said, well, I do my music, but it doesn't come naturally to me. I have to try, I said that talking's probably my thing. And I said, I'd love to have got into radio or something. And it's, I'm probably too late in life now. And he said, why don't you do a podcast? Anyone can do a podcast. So I had to think and thought, okay, what would the format be? And people seemed quite entertained by some of the silly random conversations and my my outlook on things. So I thought that's going to be the format of my podcast. And so I did it, and it's all just really new. But for you to message me and say, are you interested in doing it? And I get a lot of spam on Instagram. A lot of people that are just reaching out or putting a comment. I don't know if you get the same thing, just to make themselves visible.
Yeah,
Uh,
because the problem is this is I face doing that because what I do is I look up the hashtag podcast. I look up the hashtag Australian podcast. I look up the Australia UK podcast. I look up basically anything that's a hashtag that has to do with like bloggers, lifestyle, story people, just
okay.
talking in general. And I'll look through it and I'll comment on like just podcasts. Like obviously ones that I see, usually ones that are starting out, and usually ones that I see like some potential in, and I'll comment on them like, hey, you know, I do this podcast. You want to come on? And that is kind of selfish in my own way. Like, but I do care about everybody I do have on. Like, I remember everybody's story. I could name every single episode, what number they were on, and what they do, because it's all about taking time to have conversations with people. But the problem is, people then message me like, "Hey, I can give you 10 minutes of my time. I got this thing I want to promote." I'm like, it's not. It's not that.
No.
It's not something I've turned down. People that just think they're in high regards,
Okay.
mostly because it becomes this ploy. We live in a world where people just want a piece. They want something to piggyback off of. Nobody
Hmm.
just wants to take the time to just shoot the shit anymore. I'm like, feel free. I want you to be as real as possible when you get on my podcast. You don't have to have anything going for you, but we can just talk. Because even that sense of relaxation for an hour, 2 hours, however long it lasts, it's an escape. But the
It,
problem is like people really, really want to grab a piece of what you have and then try and piggyback off of it. Like, let me promote this book I wrote. Let me promote this I wrote. Let me promote this. I'm like, I'll give you a minute at the, to promote it, but it's not going to be the focus of the thing. Well, I don't know, man. I got to get this promotion out there and give you 20 minutes of my time. I got back-to-back interviews today. I'm like, dude, on my days off, I can record 10 of these suckers a day, but I blank out 2 hours of time for that specific person because I got to give you my full attention.
yeah, but from my point of view, it's great because you know, I did a podcast yesterday with just a woman I work with, and she runs a small business, and she went to this kind of seminar thing recently, and they were giving people advice, and they did this big thing about self-doubt, and we talked about that on the podcast because and how detrimental it can be. You start thinking that you're not good enough for this and you're not good enough for that, and I had a bit of that for this because, like I said, I was a bit like, well, what if I haven't got anything to contribute to the podcast and and all that. But it's the way that you do it that's so casual and it's just a chat was probably the thing that convinced me to do it, just because I thought, well, do you know what, it's literally just me chatting to someone else on the other side of the world, which is really cool for me.
Yeah, if we were just having a cup of coffee or something and
Yeah.
enjoying a little like side street chat. I definitely need to probably fix like maybe the description of my podcast. Be like, it's just like if we had a coffee or something. But I just tell people it's like, it's just everyday conversation. I mean, it's one-on-one mostly because you get two people or something, like you get three people in a room. It tends that someone keeps trying to like just give answers, not really, rather than questioning or just talking. It just turns into like
Yeah.
this, unless you have like a really good relationship. But like it's easy just to shoot the shit. I mean, especially like for me, it's 6 o'clock in the morning my time, so it's definitely probably like later in the day for you, and it's completely different. But this will open you up to a whole new thing. I mean, I started my episodes in the beginning was all handheld recorder, a little Zoom recorder
Okay.
I used to do in person. So I was doing interviews with people that are in my area, just like conversation, shooting the shit for 2 hours. I'd invite them over, I'd go to them, and it was difficult. And then I found this way, and I'm like, this expands the category to farther out than my state. This expands it out to the world. I podcast with people from Brazil. I podcast with people from UK, Australia, Ecuador. Surprisingly, I have a large audience in India.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what I'm saying down there where it's getting traction, but
Well,
benefit to the people.
so how did you get into this? And firstly though, your description for the podcast is fine. It was scrolling through the episodes and seeing the people that I think there was a DJ or something and all this. And I'm thinking, wow, But the actual description is fine because it is exactly what you do. Just random topics. Where it goes is where it goes, and that's great. But how did you get into podcasting and why? What?
So I actually hit kind of close in relation with you with how you started your podcast. My whole family is musicians and broadcasters.
Okay.
So it was just natural. I guess I fell into this. Like for a while, when I first started, I was like listening to Joe Rogan all the time. I'm like, damn, like I've been listening to this guy for so long. Like I want to start a podcast. I want to try this conversation type thing. I was always a real good talker. Plus I was introvert for really, really long after high school. I just felt like being called annoying too much because I'd always be like the class clown. I was like, man, it's just best to blank off from people and just get out of there. And then like I had a buddy call me up who was on my podcast, and he was like, hey man, like I know we haven't talked since high school and like lunch class. We just sat together and that was it. Like, that was all. We just had lunch. And he was like, I know it's been 5 years, but I'm on top of my roof right now. And I'm pretty drunk, and honestly, I don't feel like I should just want to go on anymore. And at this time, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. So like, as soon as he called, I was about to say like, man, you call me back. And then he said that. And I was like, dude, I'm experiencing the same thing. We're both in our 20s. It's getting to the point where it's like, if you're not going to the bar, you're not having fun. It's just becoming work. Everybody sees it in their life. You go to work and then you come home. You don't want to go do anything. You don't want to hang out. You don't want to, you get comfortable. And I told him, I was like, after we had talked for a couple hours, and he was like, thanks, man. And then I ended up having him on my podcast, and we talked about it there too. But it's like, people need to talk. We need to socialize. I could have did this podcast around the 4th episode I released. I could have done my own radio station broadcasting thing on my dad's radio network. But I was like, no, I need to do this myself, because once somebody gets butted in, they start to monetize it. This is where me and your podcast will relate, because it's just conversation. It's about anything and everything, basically. But when it comes to like a certain podcast, they have specific audience target members. I've been people that I've invited on here that are like, we don't like your format. I'm like, what's my format? What's wrong with it? They're like, you are open to everything. You don't just narrow down on a topic. You give me a topic, I'll come on. I'm like, the topic's you then. The topic's our conversation. What else would you want me to say? Do you want me to find? I can do a specific one. I mean, I did this for so long. I just actually restarted back up one of my older podcasts. It was about the first month I did this one. I post this one every day, but my other one was more specific topics. So I would have you on again. And then we would just, in 3 hours or 2 hours, however long you had, we would just shoot, like I pull up just topics you're interested in, and we'd shoot like for an hour on each topic. And I had a whole binder filled with like notes on like things. Like my buddy wanted to know the history of cornflakes. And it turns out it was invented in 1945 to prevent masturbation. Like we would have never known that, but it's just us shooting the crap on the topic while actually learning about it. Cause I found out, when you do a topic where it's just conversation, it goes anywhere. That's fun. But then if you do a narrowed down one that gives the audience kind of a view of what to do in. So like this one's out of the blank, literally meaning out of nothing. Then fill in the blank was the opposite. Like filling in the blank. Like I'm like, yeah, play on words. I know I'm kind of dumb.
No. It's good. And that's interesting, because I like how you're so honest with it, and you're doing it for your own reasons. And I'm doing mine for my own reasons. But I've got to admit, I've kind of, because I'm putting it out to people that I know, someone said to me, if you want my feedback on your podcast, I enjoyed it, but I feel like you've limited your audience to people that know you or your guest. And I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, it's true. It's all random topics with a couple of funny features in, based on silly conversations we've had. And I thought, you know what, that'd be quite funny to have on the podcast. But it's kind of made it hard for me to reach a wider audience. And without, I'm not doing it because I want anything out of it. I just want people to listen. And the more people, the better. But at the same time, I'd rather have 10 people that enjoy it and listen to it than, maybe loads of followers on Instagram that aren't actually listening to the podcast. But I've been actually thinking of changing the format up to a specific topic, ironically, after what you were just saying, because probably one of my biggest passions is movies. I love movies, and I could talk about it all day. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe if I do it just about movies and have a different topic each episode, like sequels that were better than the originals, etc., that kind of thing. Maybe people that don't know me would just see it in the categories for movies, or entertainment, and think, okay, I'll give that a listen. So I'm actually thinking of changing it up, but there's a part of me that's a bit like, as much as I want to do it because I love movies, I like the format that it is at the moment. But if there aren't many people listening to it, I've got to wonder if it's worth the time and effort editing it, getting someone around.
Well, I don't even edit my podcast, dude, to be honest with you. I did the first couple, but I was doing it on my phone at the start because I used to have iMovie on my phone, and I actually used to record it through my phone. That was difficult. It was like, oh my God, this is taking me hours and hours, especially doing something on your phone that's meant for a computer. It was way too tasking. So I was like, I'm just going to post it up there. If you hear a cough, if you hear whatever, I don't care. It's going to be natural conversation. I don't edit out curse words. It's about having a real conversation. I'm like, we already live in a world where people are suppressed pretty bad when it comes to just acting. We have to act like a gym that works 9 to 5. You have to have a job. You have to do all these types of things. I'm like, no, you're supposed to be what you want to be. Not supposed to harm anybody, obviously, but you're also supposed to want to live your life the way you think that you should be living. And that's what I wanted to show people. Like, I curse in my everyday life, so I wasn't going to hide it from my podcast. I mean,
keep it real, kind of.
I have my grandmom listens to my podcast. She's like, you curse a lot in your podcasts. I'm like, yeah, well, I curse in my everyday life, but I don't need to be dropping the F word when I'm eating grandma's pancakes. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's like, I know a time and a place. Like, I don't just walk around and be like, hey, you this fucking guy. Like, I don't go around doing that. I'm an average person, but like, I don't see stigma in cursing because I'm like, it's a stress relief. First of all, like if you just say like, oh shit, I missed the bus or I missed the cab. If you say something like that, it's a little bit of stress relief off your back, because I think a lot of days now people don't problem solve very well. We get overwhelmed and then we think that problem's going to be around forever and we're never going to get over it. And it makes us really hard to try and survive.
Yeah, I totally agree with the swearing. It's kind of, it seems to be just the natural thing to do. You smack your head on something or something annoys you, or it's instinctive. Whether it's right or wrong. But I don't really edit swearing out of my podcast. I know some people that swear more than others, and I guess if I had someone on and they were really effing and blinding, then I'd probably edit some of them out. But I like what you're doing as far as it's 100% from start to finish the conversation.
I appreciate that. I like a lot of the stuff I was looking at in yours. I mean, I've listened to probably I'm not even going to try and pronounce your episode 2.
Lamosa.
Lamosa. Okay, I said it is a proper pronunciation. But that one was interesting. And then the flat earth one, Cats in Space, like you're already kind of doing like a narrowed topic thing. But I think what you're doing is a little bit like what I did with fill in the blank a little bit. It's a topic that has a name and has a description, but it's our thoughts on it and our interpretations on it. Like I'm reading facts in front of me and my buddy is just coming in and learning about it for the first time. So we're talking about, we had an episode I still need to post. I'm on it. Like I have like 80 of those episodes just on my computer relaxing. Cause I'm like, I gave up on that podcast cause I started doing this one.
Yeah.
And I started like this one was like maybe going out once a week, and then it bumped up to once every like day because I found this way Zoom to use recording, so I can record with people every single day. I could record like maybe 5 or 10. Yeah. And before it was like I had to schedule people to come to my house, and people are known to be flaky. So I would have like 4 back-to-back days where I'd have people come over and then be ready for it. And then I'd be like, try and plan stuff out. And then last minute people like, sorry, bro, I'm going to the bar tonight. Sorry, I'm doing this. So it's like, oh, now I don't have any episodes this week.
Yeah.
So that's when I started back this other thing where I could go to my buddy's house and I could just be like, so what do you know about Christmas in Nazi Germany? And he's like, what? And I'm like, there was Christmas in Nazi Germany where they literally took out Jesus out of Christmas, but they couldn't take out Santa Claus. Hitler, there's a picture of him with a little girl making Christmas cards, and it says Christmas in Nazi Germany, and on the front of the Christmas cards were giant Nazi symbols. They literally took out the little cutters of gingerbread men, and they used soldiers as the cutouts, and they used modeled airplanes that were bomber fighter jets, and they had little swastika cookies. Like nobody talked about that for 2 years in Germany. That was a thing. And me and my buddy are talking about it. And he's like, you think those cookies tasted good? And I was like, it's just like, it's the whole thing. That's what I think you'd probably like to do. Like, if you really wanted to switch it to like maybe a certain topic, you still shoot the shit on the topic, like still crack your jokes, still be able to go wherever you want. If you want to tangent off into something else. I mean, I did a one called, I've done so many government project ones on Fill in the Blank because I always love how we tried to blow up the moon. We tried to do a bunch of stuff. So I'm like, me and my buddy are talking about it. He goes, imagine if we just decided to launch a nuke at the moon. I'm like, yeah, how thoroughly thought out would that be? He's like, then there's just some dude on the moon that's like stranded and he just sees a nuke coming at him. He's just like, fuck. It's like talking like that. It creates a good sense of, I mean, because what podcasting is, it's meant to be a form of relaxation. It can be a learning process too, but it's definitely a way to get people to connect to other people again.
Yeah, as something that I'm always really conscious of, and I know everyone sees themselves differently to everyone else, is that I don't really know a lot of facts on a lot. It's all, I've got a lot of opinions on things, and when I read something or hear something, I remember a certain part of it as opposed to all of it. So I don't feel that I'm kind of really qualified to talk about a lot of things. Which is why I always say on my podcast that it's just my opinions, and whether you agree with them or not is up to you. But yeah, the reason I thought that maybe I'd do it about movies is just because, again, it's not a lot different. I don't know everything about movies, but it's something that I'm really interested in. So I do remember a lot of things about them, and I've got a natural enthusiasm, and I know that I could hold a conversation about movies, but. Yeah.
What types of movies though? Because I've podcasted with people like that one dude Chad you were talking about. He does the Fresh Tomatoes podcast. So he does
that's cool.
optimism in movies that usually get a shitty review. Then I podcast with people that do horror podcasts. I have one guy, Nick Manasatois. He does one called Here's My Take, and it's basically he's a film director himself, and he studies film. So he looks at the aspect of the movie and all the things that comes together. So what would your kind of narrowing down on movies be?
I don't know if it would be so specific. It would just be each episode, I guess, would have a topic about movies. I just like all movies. There are some that I veer towards more than others. I like sci-fi, horror, comedy, action. There are some that I don't go towards as much. I should probably watch, if I was more cultured, I should probably watch more foreign films. Some people tell me, oh, you should watch this film, it's great, and it's subtitled, and instantly I'm so lazy. It could be the best film in the world, but I'm like, oh, I've got to read subtitles. And it's really lazy, I get that. But there are certain films that appeal to me more than others. But then I can be passionate about things like, Predator is one of my favorite films. Okay.
Oh God, dude. I had a bad story about Predator, man. I was at my hotel, not to cut you off, but like a month ago. And some dude brought his bike up into his hotel room and I didn't know. So I'm at the elevator and I'm waiting for the elevator and around the hall. So I can't see who's coming down the hall. All I'm hearing is the bicycle click, like making the Predator noise, like going down the thing. And I'm hearing it and I'm like, I just saw the movie like the night before. And I was like, this is where I fucking die. And like he comes around the corner with his bike. He's like, how you doing? I'm like, dude, you just scared the shit out of me. He goes, why? I'm like, that sounded like Predator coming down the hall. And he goes, what, my bike? And he starts going with his bike again. He's like, oh my God, dude, I bet you got scared shitless. I was like, yeah, man, thought I was done. I thought that was it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, the first one's my favorite. The second one was pretty good. Then you had the Alien versus Predator films. They were okay, but then they did Predators, wasn't it? Which I think was the third one with Adrian Brody, where they get dropped in onto the actual Predator planet.
That was my favorite one, dude.
Really?
To be honest with you, it was really, really badass, the amount of casting they had for that.
Yeah, the thing I did like about that is that I think it was it Robert Rodriguez? I think directed that, and I got the feeling that he was a real fan of the first one and tried to pull it back to that kind of thing, that was popular about the first one. So that wasn't too bad. But then I heard that the Predator, the last one that came out, I think last year, was coming out. It was written and directed by Shane Black, who was Hawkins in the first one, the guy with the glasses. He gets killed first. And he did, I think he wrote Lethal Weapon and all that kind of thing. So I'm thinking, great, a guy that was in the original film is writing and directing this new one. He's going to pull it back. It's going to be the best Predator film since the original Predator film. And I hated it. It was just, it tried too hard. It had comedy in it. And it was just a complete example of what films have become now, I think, where they're trying too hard to do well at the box office rather than just, let's make a really good film, put it out and see what people think. And it really frustrates me that so many films are getting my hopes up and disappointing me.
Well, that's a problem that's going on a little bit when it comes to capitalizing on the market. It seems like Disney and all these other main producers are kind of owning the market by buying out other people now. I do like a lot of their movies too, but it's some of my favorite movies are the ones that are independent films that kind of go out by an artist that doesn't have a lot of advertising money, where it's like, how did this show up into the theaters and I not see a commercial for it? I was seeing the commercial for Moana or some other Disney movie.
Yeah.
It's like, where was this trailer for this awesome movie? And the guy's like, he didn't have the money to capitalize the market. Disney owns that now. I think it's turning into like how Amazon now owns has basically annihilated bookstores,
Yeah, sure.
and then also Blockbuster. Like Netflix completely dominated the market on that. And now you're seeing Amazon's now doing video. They're now doing Amazon Prime, where you can do like Amazon Video and all this type of stuff. And it's like Netflix is like, fuck, you're going to turn us into Barnes and Noble, where nobody's going to want to come and like stop here anymore.
Yeah, I do a thing on my podcast. Sometimes I get a hit on it. Someone watches a film after I recommend it, but I do a movie of the week and a song of the week as part of the podcast. And the whole point of it, some of them might possibly be bigger films, but the point is I've seen some really good films that aren't necessarily blockbusters or particularly well known. So I just do a little bit of my movie of the week this week is this. And the whole point of it is to try and make some of these films that maybe didn't have a massive audience because they weren't, financed hugely or whatever. Just trying to shine a spotlight on it, because I've seen some films that I really like, and I'll talk to someone and say, "Have you seen this film?" And they're like, "No, I never heard of it." It's like, you've got to watch this film. And I'm not talking really obscure films. I'm just talking films that maybe weren't blockbusters, And I try and make a point of making my movie of the week a film that isn't a blockbuster, because everyone's seen the blockbusters. Everyone's seen those big films.
Well, it's hard to like kind of put your faith in, something that you have not heard a review about yet.
Yeah.
But I tell people, like, man, when I go somewhere and someone's making my food for me, like Chipotle or some type of like where you have to actually pick what you want on there, I just put my faith in the person. I'm like, make it. They're like, what do you want? Chicken? Do you want steak? I'm like, what? If you looked at me right now, what would you suspect I would want to eat? And they're like, I got you. And I'm like, you got me. I'm putting my faith in your hands. That is a risky roll of the fucking dice to do at any type of establishment. But I sit there, and if it tastes like shit while I'm eating it, I'm like, it didn't matter, because I gave him my faith to do that. And maybe he let me down, but it doesn't matter. Most of the time I'm sitting there eating it, I'm like, it's good. Okay. I'm still going to eat it anyway. It's like, sometimes you got to do that in life, because you end up if you constantly, like, for me, trying to point out to you at Chipotle, I feel like an asshole. If I go, I've only eaten it once, but if I'm at like some type of Wawa or something, I'm like, I want this, I want that, I want like at Subway, I'm at this, I want that, I want that, I want this, I want this. I'm being an asshole because I know that's your job, but I don't like telling people how to make something for me. I'm like, just do it. Do it. You make fucking sandwiches every day. You know what's good shit. You might not know what I like, but you know something that's good. So just let me try something. It's a good way of trying something new. It's what you can do with films. I see movies all the time on Netflix, and I'm like, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. But then I click on it. I watched a Chinese sitcom show where it was all in Chinese, but it was subtitled, and I'm like reading the subtitles. It's all super, super idiotic slapstick humor, obvious stuff. They add like little side effects to it. Like one girl bends down in front of a guy, and this older dude's like looking at a newspaper and looks over and sees her ass and then looks up. And then you get to see like they draw the dotted lines like coming out of nowhere, like a cartoon pointing at the girl's butt. Like you can tell us where he's looking. And then she would like sway left and sway right and then back up a little bit and then go forward.
Yeah.
And his head would go with her ass just back and forth. And so, and it was like perfect. And I was like, this is still funny. Like it's just a different thing, but I would have never even got to experience this if I would have just stuck with The Ranch or whatever's popular and trending on Netflix.
Yeah, I think a lot of people watch films or TV programs and they're just overly critical about it. If I watch a film, my overall goal is that at the end of the film or the TV program, I think, have I just wasted an hour and a half of my life or 2 hours of my life? And usually it's, no, do you know what? It wasn't the best film I've ever seen, but I enjoyed it. I've taken something away from it. And that's how I judge anything I watch. Or most things I do, actually. But some people are just overly critical and, oh, well, didn't like this about it, didn't like that about it. Well, did you enjoy the film? Yeah, it was all right. Well, there you go.
Yeah, my buddy was like, let's go see Avengers Endgame. And I was like, I'd rather go see, another one that's not as popular in the movie theaters, I liked it. I've only seen bits and pieces of Avengers Endgame, but like one of my friends works at a movie theater. So we just show up and then I'm like, I'm done with this movie. I'm just going to hop into another movie. He's like, okay. And he just like walks away. Like they don't care. Nobody honestly at the movie theaters cares that much, especially like during wintertime down here. Everyone's just like, if you want to hop into another one, if you want to spend all day at the movies and just buy one ticket, go ahead. Because they're doing the same crap. I mean, they fall asleep in the projection room. They're all just, they're average everyday people working a job. So it's like they're not that restrict on anything.
Yeah.
Except when it comes to movie posters. They're like, no, you can't have it. I'm like, why? You're going to throw it out anyway. They're like, no, I'm taking it actually home. I'm like, oh, okay. But it's like, it's cool because like that's how I discovered a lot of movies that I would never have even taken the time to see. Like I love horror films, but I don't like the simple jump scare.
No.
That upsets me a little bit because I don't ever get scared at anything. I think more things that scare me is like when I see a mentally insane person like on the street.
Yeah.
Because I took psychology. So I'm like, oh, there's something wrong there in his life. Like that's what scares me is actual like human like trauma to the brain.
Okay.
And when I watch a scary movie, like there's nothing scares me. I'll be sitting there in a movie theater. Like I remember I went to go see, what was it? Oh, it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie. I think it was called The Visit or something.
Oh yeah. With the grandparents.
Yeah, the grandparents were there like crazy. Everybody in the theater was like, like they were little children. I looked over and my mom and my brother, who argue all the time, are literally cuddled up beside each other. I'm like, my brother's 24 years old. I'm 21. Okay. So I'm looking over. I'm like, are you like, man, the fuck up? And I'm like watching the film and I'm just sitting there like, this is just dumbest thing ever. You can tell when it's coming on. You can tell all this stuff. But then like, later, like I was like, man, this is some weird things going on. These people are like mentally insane. And they found out that's not the grandparents. That's when I started getting nervous. I was like, oh shit, like this could be an actual scenario. And that's when I started like doing that. But like everybody's like, the things that just jump out and get you like that, like the jump scares constantly. People are just like sitting there like, ugh. And I'm like, it's simple. It's like, where's the story to it? Where's the stuff I liked being when it was like this long process, Lady in the Water, all these, movies I really, really enjoy because like once it captures you with a story like The Shining, like little pig, let me in. I'm like, oh my God, like Jack Nicholson, first of all, is fucking insane. He should be president because I'm pretty sure he's tried every drug and I'm pretty sure he's fucked everybody. So there's nothing to implement him. But like seeing something like that, that's what I like about movies too, is the character, the actor that goes into it. I mean, have you seen Christian Bale's weight transformations and for his roles?
I've seen the Machinist. That's the one where I've seen
where he almost died of freaking weight. Okay, so he did something like his last one with like Dick Cheney. He was like 250 pounds. Yeah. That man puts his body through hell. Just to perform his roles.
I'm not comparing the two, but I remember it's not good for you. You know, it's great. It's real commitment. But I remember reading that Tom Hanks had been told he'd got diabetes or something, and he'd said that because of that, he wouldn't be doing any roles that, meant that he had to drastically change his body weight, because obviously he lost a lot of weight for Castaway, etc. And it's insane that they do these things, and they get paid well for it, I guess. But that's real commitment to their craft. But that was probably scary that Christian Bale lost that amount of weight for The Machinist. That scene where he's there with his shirt off and he's sucking his stomach in and he's just all rib cage. It's scary.
Yeah, he literally put on 100 pounds in 5 months. He said,
for Batman Begins.
Yeah, he said this in an interview. He was like, to get in shape for Batman. Now, when they had him in Batman Begins, when he's doing push-ups when he wakes out of bed, like when he came from, he came from Machinist into Batman Begins.
Yeah, that's right.
So when they were giving him like things to do on set to make him lose weight, that's when you see him doing push-ups when he wakes up out of bed. That was them trying to get him to like slim down a little bit, because he literally walked on set and they were like, whoa, like we said, put on weight, don't bulk up like a bear. Batman's meant to be like lean, not meant to be a giant like monster like of muscle. And he was like, well, this is what I do. And then someone, I remember he got a lot of flack from TMZ. A lot of people were like, he's an asshole. Did you see him yell at that kid that didn't have the props concession stand up for him? He's such a rich asshole. I'm like, no, he goes out of his way to put his body through hell and go 100% into his craft. And someone that's not doing their ability just to be able to do their job correctly, he gets pissed off about. Because if he's putting in all that work, then why does someone else have to do less?
Yeah, no, I agree. He's got a bit of a bad reputation. I think, didn't he shout or assault one of his mom or something or other a while ago after one of the Batman movies? There was some bad press about that.
Johnny Depp got accused of hitting his wife.
Yeah,
it turned out to be a money thing.
Is that definitely what it is?
It was a money thing because apparently, what's his name? I was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast about it. Forgot who the comedian is. Oh my God, it's going to kill me because I just listened to him too.
American or English or?
He's an American. Doug Stanhope. So okay. Doug Stanhope is an actual friend of Johnny Depp. And he was like, there's no way in hell Johnny Depp is not the guy to hit his wife. And see, whenever you get called in a domestic disturbance dispute, like they immediately take the guy away because that's what they just assume, that you're the guy beating up on the woman. So even if it's a drastic situation, they just remove the guy from the scenario whenever they're called. They did not remove Johnny Depp from the house. They didn't do anything of that sort. So immediately that was like, why didn't he get arrested or pulled out of there? And then it turns out like he didn't have a prenup. He didn't have any of those things. And then they went or she wanted a lot of stuff. So it was kind of a ploy for attention. Everyone said it was he was already talking about it heading that way, that she was going to want his money. And I'm like, the man, he's not going to, like, people are like, he's not going to be in Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm like, he's going to be in Pirates of the Caribbean 56, dude, because he's buying houses like nobody's business. He owns like 35 homes and they're all billions of dollars worth and there's nobody living in them. He doesn't rent them out. He just owns them.
Something that annoys me about that is that when something like that happens, someone's accused of something or, they've been arrested or whatever. It's all right. Boycott their films. He shouldn't be cast in any more films. There's this kind of backlash where all these holier than thou people just instantly jump on him and say, right, because around that time, Johnny Depp was on, we've got a show over here called the Graham Norton Show. And he has.
I like Graham Norton.
Yeah, I do. He's really relaxed with his guests. There's no, do you know what I mean? He has all these massive A-list stars on, but he's never kind of starstruck by any of them. He's had Tom Cruise on multiple times.
Are you a fan of Tom Holland?
Tom Holland? Yes and no. He seems to have this thing where everyone's saying he's the best Spider-Man. And
Tobey Maguire is the best Spider-Man.
I'm the same. I liked Tobey Maguire. And I like those movies, but...
I absolutely hate Tom Holland, but I have to show you this. Someone pointed out that I look like him. So I'm on the left.
Oh, my God. Are you serious?
Damn it.
you got a hat and a hoodie on. So now I
Yeah.
see it. That is insane. My stepdaughter would love you. She is obsessed with Tom
I
Holland.
hate Tom Holland. I literally like my buddy always said it, and I was like, no way. Then he sent me a picture of me from like Christmas, and then sent me a picture of Tom Holland on an airplane without makeup, and he's like, dude, they found you. And I put it up on my Instagram, and like everyone was commenting, like, what are you saying here? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, it's just, what are you on a plane? You met some chick? I'm like, that is not me. They're like, oh my God, that's Tom Holland. And then I immediately got on the Twitter and people started retweeting it to Tom Holland. It got like 5,000 retweets. I'm like, if this is how I meet Tom Holland, this is a problem.
Well, it must be nice to know that if anything tragic happens to Tom Holland and the Spider-Man franchise is still going strong, you've got a good chance of stepping.
I will run that shit. I'd be like, look, I would come out and straight up say it. I cannot beat Tobey Maguire. I'm sorry. You cannot be 30 years old in a movie for a kid that's supposed to be 18 years old and make you believe that that person is 18 years old. I watched Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man. He's like in his like 29, like 30 almost. And seeing him play in Spider-Man was like, he looks like he was 18 years old. He had the mentality of an eight. I felt such close relation. But I watched Tom Holland. I'm like, this dude's fucking 26. He's not Spider-Man's age. Like, he's not the average age for Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire played it perfectly.
I like Tobey Maguire. Those films were totally different. You know, they were slightly more light-hearted. I think they've got a little bit. Well, they went a bit darker with the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, and lightened up a little bit with Tom Holland. But my biggest, don't get me wrong, I'm a massive Marvel movie fan. I've seen all of those films. I loved Endgame, preferred Infinity War, but and I love all those films. My issue with the new Spider-Man, like since they've rebooted it with Tom Holland, is that, and I never read all the comics, maybe it's based on the comics, but I don't like how Tony Stark, who Iron Man's my favorite Marvel film out of them all, but I don't like how Tony Stark's kind of credited with pretty much making Spider-Man Spider-Man. You know, I like the idea that Spider-Man became Spider-Man on his own, but they made Tony Stark a big piece of that, like with the suits and mentoring him and all that kind of thing. And I don't know, did that happen in the comics, or did they just do that to integrate the two film franchises?
I'm not a big comic guy, but I mean, I definitely like the weird thing about comics is they're written by so many different people. So like, there's one where the Wolverine gets killed by the Incredible Hulk. There's like, but that's not what's happening now. The problem is like they're all different, like alternate timelines. So it's like it all doesn't lead off into a story. It's not like a movie. Like if you watch Lethal Weapon, they're just back to back to back. Same storyline. Someone dies, they can't be in the next one. They can't be, it's that type of concept. But if you go to a comic book, people are being brought back to life. People are being murdered. Like there's Deadpool murders everybody. And I'm like, what's happening? And they're like, it's just another artist's interpretation. I'm like, oh, once somebody explained that to me, it's like, oh, this isn't actually a long structure. This is just a short story, or what would happen if this happened.
Yeah.
Which kind of changes your concept.
How do you feel about the next Thor film apparently being Natalie Portman is going to become Thor? Have you heard about that?
Ah, man, I did see a picture of that. I thought that was a joke. I don't know, man, because it was weird watching a little bit of Avengers Endgame and then seeing older Thor, like fat Thor. It's like, whoa. And it's like, I definitely think like it's crazy because like I still see Chris Evans as Captain America. I still see him as Human Torch.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So it's like I still can't get past that.
I love those kind of things, though. I'm a bit of a nerd, so I like when there's little kind of crossovers, like Josh Brolin playing Cable in Deadpool 2, but also being Thanos in Infinity War, in Avengers. Like you say, Chris Evans being Human Torch in one Marvel franchise, but then becoming Captain America in another. I like all that.
You couldn't see Tony or Robert Downey Jr. playing anybody but Iron Man. Like if they put him in a different superhero thing, you're like, get the fuck out, get back in your suit, Tony. Like that's all you would say. I think when you hire someone for that superhero role, you got to have them as that superhero. You can't just ploy them out. It's just something. It's like I see it, but I'm like, damn. Like the weirdest thing is you don't want to see superheroes diving into different masks and different things like that. You want them to think it's going to be that same guy over and over and over again, so you can actually bond with that character. Like I can't see anybody else playing Wolverine's role. Hugh Jackman, 100%.
Who did I read is due to play him in a reboot?
I hope nobody. I hope it's still Hugh Jackman. I hope he's 90 years old, still running around doing that shit.
Yeah, I don't know if you know Stephen Merchant. Do you know Stephen Merchant, the really tall English guy? He did a lot of stuff with Ricky Gervais.
Oh yeah, I do know Sticky. I do know him.
He was in Logan. He was the like the albino guy or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he knows something that we don't, but I follow him on Instagram, and he a little while ago put up some pictures saying if they ever reboot the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he was putting pictures of actors up of who he'd like to see play parts that are already being played by actors now. And you know, I don't know his name, but you know the guy out of Whiplash, and he was actually Mr. Fantastic in the reboot of Fantastic Four.
I don't know his name, but I know who you're talking about.
He put him up as Tony Stark, like in a reboot, and I don't know. I don't agree with it.
I can see it in the look, but not in the actual like. I don't know. I don't think his demeanor is right for it. Yeah, because Robert Downey Jr. is really hard probably to follow. That's like trying to fill, like. I was trying to fill some really big shoes. I couldn't picture anybody else being Batman besides Christian Bale now.
What do you think of Ben Affleck? Ben Affleck?
No comment.
Well, do you know what? I've got to say, when I heard that he was being cast, I was, right, I'm not watching this film. I've got nothing against Ben Affleck, but I just didn't see him as Batman. Growing up, I used to read the Batman graphic novels and comics, so it was quite close to my heart. And I just thought, what have you done? Please, between now and when you make the film, recast that role. And I've got to say, I thought he did quite a good job because I don't know if you've read any comics, but I read a graphic novel called The Dark Knight Returns. And it's about an older Batman coming back after he's kind of got Gotham under such order that there wasn't any need for him. But he comes back in like his 50s and he's henchman. He's like really big. And the suit was similar, and he played him very much like that graphic novel. I think it was Frank Miller did it. And I was proven wrong. The films were terrible, but I thought Ben Affleck as Batman was actually the best part of those films.
The problem is when a guy's in a role and he's like, yeah, I'll do the next movie. And then they're like, wait a minute, we got a bigger budget now. Let's go for a better and bigger actor that's going to get more people to go see the thing. Then it's like, oh, you went for the money aspect of the movie, not trying to get the actual like good ass movie being created. Like a lot of people give Wolverine Origins crap. I'm like, it was a pretty good movie, I thought it was actually pretty good.
I like that film.
Yeah. I didn't like what they did with Deadpool, but at the same time, I loved that they incorporated his brother. I think his brother needs a spin-off movie. Like his brother needs his own thing.
Sabretooth,
his brother that would run like on his hands and legs like
That's
a dog.
creepy,
like that shit was awesome, dude. Watching him run across the World War battlefield, just freaking trotting across the trenches. I was like, and then like jumping over and just clawing somebody in the face. I'm like, it's savagery at its finest. Let's get that guy a movie.
I think I read that. What's the guy's name? He's married to Naomi Watts, isn't he? Did you ever see that film Goon? With Sean William Scott, the ice hockey film. Yeah,
that's one of my all-time favorite hockey movies. I love
that film.
I love The Last Enforcer, the new one they brought out.
Yeah, that was quite good. I preferred the first one, but
I did too. But I mean, I'm telling you, man, when you get to see him age and they keep that aspect to it. Like now he's older and he's like, shit, like I can't keep up with these kids anymore. I'm like, that was a cool, like I actually might watch that when we're done here. That sounds like a good movie, man. I'm telling you, the first one was amazing because I remember when he got into the very first fight, and it's literally a movie that's all about beating the shit out of people.
It's so graphic, but you just can't. That's actually, do you know what? That might have to be one of my movie of the weeks because I'm forever telling people about that film and they've never seen it. I think they just think it's a sports film. I'm not into sports. I'm not watching it. But you don't have to be a sports fan. I'm not really a sports fan, but that film is so good.
I love it when the beginning when the dude's like jumps over the things like, you want a piece of me? And he says the word faggot and the guy's like, hey, my brother's gay. And he's like supposed to be like kind of slow. not really
Yeah.
smart. So he's like, "Hey, my brother's gay," and the guy goes, "Motherfucker," and then goes to punch him in the face, and all I hear is like the break of his knuckles on the dude's skull. And he goes, and then brings his hand back, and the dude just freaking like starts punching him in the head, then headbutts him and breaks the dude's helmet. And he just looks around. Everyone's like, Doug, like that whole thing. Like that's how he got his start. And then when he hops on the ice skating rink, and like in the beginning, he's like, "How you doing, coach?" And he falls head first, and everyone's like, "You're not joining the fucking ice escapades, right, buddy?" And he's like, "You're not the escapades." And he's like, spit it out. And he just goes, "Fuck it," and then punches his own teammate in the face, and then starts beating the crap out of half of his team.
It's such a good film, and do you know what I think is a shame as well? Some people judge Sean William Scott on Stifler, which, don't get me wrong, I love the American Pie films, and I love that character, but he's done so many different roles. But if people don't like that Stifler character, they won't watch anything else that he's done. This is based on people I've spoken to. They're like, I didn't like Stifler. I said, just watch it. He's nothing like Stifler in this film. He's completely different.
Before I saw American Pie, I saw Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, really? Okay.
With Johnny Knoxville. So I saw him as playing Bo. He was the one that was driving the car. So, I saw that. And then I saw like when he played in that movie with, I think it was Bruce Willis and Tracy Morgan.
Oh, yeah. Let's Be Cops. I've never seen that,
He freaking jumped, went to go, he's like, "I can break in this house. I'll get the evidence for you." And he runs to do parkour up this thing, trips, and then it hits his head on a brick wall and dies.
No way.
Like, it was so freaking simple. And I was like, damn, like that, like, but there's like moments like Sean William Scott's a really good. He's actually one of my favorite actors. With the concept, first of all, when I saw Goon, I was like, this movie was on Netflix and it did not say like what's trending. It was just there. And you're like, you come across like, what's this movie? Because you see his name in it. And then you click on it, you're like, this is a really good movie. Like I remember the goalie after one of the things when he got hit in the face with the puck and everyone comes on the field to beat the shit out of the other team. And then the goalie's like, "Bonsai, you motherfucker," and fucking runs into him and like just like arms him right in the chest. And the dude just does like a backflip. And then they're in the locker room and he goes, "Where's my fucking helmet?" And he goes, "We have your helmet right here." And he goes, he has his mother's face posted all over his helmet.
Yeah, that's right.
"Skull, fuck your mother." And he's like, "You Chernobyl motherfuckers." I love that. That whole like locker room commodity. Like I was on, I'm pretty sure any kid experienced a gym class in that locker room talk, like everything like that. It was a good way of exposing that in all like really short, brief little comedy bits. And I love that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's a great film. And do you know the guy? I found this out recently. Do you know the guy that was in the second one? His kind of nemesis, the guy that's sort of, I think he's taken over from him with the blonde hair. Do you know that's Kurt Russell and Meg Ryan? Not Meg Ryan. Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn's son. It's Wyatt Russell, I think his name is.
Who?
The guy. The guy. I think he's the guy that's sort of filling his shoes. Basically, I think he's a real arsehole. In the second one, in Last of the Enforcers. That guy is Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn's son, Wyatt Russell.
He does look like him too.
I've seen him in a couple of other things. Yeah, I've seen him in a couple of other things that I'd seen him in previously, and I was like, no way, that's Kurt Russell's son.
What do you think about Zombieland 2?
Do you know what? Zombieland is one of my favorite films.
I've been waiting forever for Zombieland.
Me too. I remember years ago that they were talking about doing a sequel, and it was in development for a long time, and it didn't happen. And I think they did a TV show, a short-lived TV show. So when I heard that all the original cast had signed back on for a second movie, I've got super excited about it. I'm just really hoping that it's not a letdown because I like the first one so much.
I think we're all going to enjoy it because they're definitely going to have more Tallahassee in it. Woody Harrelson. Yeah. I just saw a band thing. Apparently his son, I think, is in a band because I see I just watched celebrities read mean tweets on my phone this morning. So there was one where they had a band edition, and this dude looked exactly like Woody Harrelson's kid. I mean, looked exactly like Woody Harrelson. I was like, is that fucking Woody Harrelson? And I started looking it up. It's like, that's his son. I was like, whoa. That is weird. Like, I did not know that was a thing, but like, that's like the same thing when I saw Straight Outta Compton and they had for Ice Cube, they had his son play and looked exactly like Ice Cube. You're like, whoa, that is like damn good acting.
Woody Harrelson's great. He's such a good actor to do such diverse roles. Do you ever see that film Kingpin, the Farrelly brothers?
It scared me of ever reaching into a ball return.
Well, I loved him in that. But then you think that, do you know, I've never seen Natural Born Killers. It's a film I've never seen. I keep intending to watch it, but just haven't seen it. But I liked him in. Have you seen the Planet of the Apes trilogy, the latest trilogy?
Yeah.
I liked him in the third one. I thought he was really good in that. He was playing that serious role. He pulls off that bad thing and the comedic thing so well. He's just a really good actor.
Yeah, it's really strange too. Like Planet of the Apes, the concept of it, it's really good because that is actually an impending fear. I think a lot of people are afraid of, that apes are actually going to take over. Look, I've been to the zoo, and I this is where I say maybe we come from like an ape species, because I watched a monkey pick up a stuffed animal teddy bear and immediately start jacking off with it. I was like, that is exactly what a human would do at that primal state. Like, that's the first thing. Like, that's where you can tell they closely relate to us. But like, when there comes to like that movie where they just give them a chemical and they're able to talk, I was watching that. I'm like, chimpanzees, they're brutal as hell. Did you hear about that? The guy that got killed by a bunch of chimpanzees?
No.
This was like a couple of years ago, but a guy made a birthday cake for one of his favorite chimpanzees at the zoo, and he gave it to the specific monkey, and all the other monkeys got jealous. You know what they did?
What?
They beat the shit out of the other monkey, killed it, and then they broke out of their enclosure and they literally killed the guy. And by the way they kill people is the way monkeys fight. They're different from gorillas. Gorillas actually jump and bang into each other, like they fly at each other.
Yeah.
Like, and they just use brutal force. Monkeys, they go for what you need and what they know will like truly cripple you. So they'll rip your dick off. They'll rip your fingers off. Like, they bit the dude's fingers off, ripped his crotch off. They ripped him to shreds.
What?
And all because they got jealous because he gave us one of the other monkeys a cake and didn't give him one.
Oh shit! Sorry, losing you. Sorry.
I was like, but they literally killed him because he literally gave a monkey a cake and favoritized another monkey.
The thing about chimps and anything like that is they're so they're just animals. They're just absolute, just carnal. I don't know if that's the right word, but just so unpredictable. And you know, you've seen them before where they're bringing their fists down and they're just beating things to a pulp. And there's just so much power there. You just know that they could overpower you so easily. There's that whole and they're cute and all that, but they're terrifying at the same time.
Well, it's a primal aspect to them too. Like, if you see a gorilla,
primal, that's the word. Yeah.
If you get to see a gorilla bang his chest and like, claim dominance, you see a lot of guys try and do that nowadays in like the supermarket. Like, they try and cut in front of you in the checkout line. Like, all right, man. Like, okay, not really do it that much, but it's crazy to see that, because you get to see a lot of, I wouldn't say underdeveloped people, but a lot of people that just try and go by their like most alpha characteristic by trying to be the most masculine, be the most this. It's like, we come from something. Is it so far off to think that maybe we came from apes? I mean, come on. I'm not saying it's true, but I'm saying, like, if you look at anything, we relate way too much to the beings around us. Like, where you look at Africa, we learned off basically the animals around us, our environment around us. So we learned to hunt like the animals we have here. In Africa, there was a warlord named General Butt Naked that used to go underwater and wait for kids to go swim in the river. And he used to come up and grab them, drag them underwater, snap their necks and kill them. What? And yeah, well, there's a story on Netflix about it called The Redemption of Butt Naked. But what people hear that, they go, that man's a savage. I'm like, if you watch his documentary, he talks about his morals were different. He learned off watching the animals around him. So animals in Africa, the common ones that hide underwater and wait for their prey to come up to the river to drink, are alligators. So he learned off of alligators. So he learned how to kill people from that. We learned off things like common animals in America, like bears, like wolves, these types of things. You go for the kill, you go for the neck, you go for the throat, you go for that type of thing. That's how we kind of survive. But you look down there, they're all about like lions ripping apart to shreds and those types of things. So it's a completely different lifestyle. This is where I tell people, like, everyone's morals in every country is different. They have a right way of acting and a wrong way of acting. This can go back to the beginning of what you were saying when the helicopter was paid for, or you had to pay it out of your own thing because you had some type of extra bonus that you got from
Yeah.
like a policy. So that comes from what's happening now in China, that's supposed to be established in 2020 with their social credit score. I don't know if you've ever
Okay.
heard about this. I just learned
Not
about
really.
this a couple days ago, but
Okay.
apparently they have a social credit system where you can buy a house if you have good social credit. What they mean by social credit is if you stop for pedestrians, if you pay your bills on time, if you do this, that's how you get credit. That's how the America judges you. If you have bad credit, such as missing payments, such as taking out loans and never paying them back, such as not stopping for pedestrians. Also, kind of, if you were up at 2 o'clock in the morning mowing your lawn and your neighbor decides to call it in, your neighbor can get better social credit by ratting you out, but you get worse social credit, and they can actually make sure you can't pull out a loan. You can't get your kids into school. You can't do these types of things. It holds you back in society. That is a good idea, but the problem is it creates a society of snitches. It
Yeah,
creates a
yeah.
bunch of people to be like, I saw Wayne out in his yard at 2 o'clock in the morning mowing his grass. And then if they catch you one time doing that, then every time that person calls, even when you're in bed sleeping, they're still going to call and say that. And then they're going to come over and be like, we know you were outside, man. We don't believe you, because you get discredited. So then now when people pull out loans, they don't pay them back. When people get called, they're put on a blacklist. So when you call the person on who's on a blacklist, immediately you hear in Japanese this woman say, translated, that goes, warning, the person you are calling is untrustworthy. If you have any dealings with this person, if you have any contact with this person, just know that they have been known not to pay back or be an untrustworthy person. Please tell them to pay back their debts. And then it would proceed you to the call. But you'd hear a police siren during the call, like all that stuff, because they just blacklist you. I'm like, they want to implement that in 2020, and now America's kind of thinking about it too. And other countries, Australia, I know the UK was looking at it, but I don't know if they're going to dive into it just yet because they don't want to know what happens with China. But imagine being judged on your actions that you do in society. You know how many fucking fake people there would end up being in the world today, like acting nice
Yeah.
just to get good credit?
Yeah, I didn't think about it. This is the first I've heard about this, but that's actually a really good thought. Is, yeah, you are going to get people doing that just to get better credit. We'd be in trouble in this country.
It's Uber. It is fucking Uber.
Yeah.
They give you a 5-star rating and you got good credit. Like, that's all it is. The more people are going to want to ride in your car because you got 5-star credit. I'm
That's
literally
insane.
like listening to this, and I'm like, I researched it before I was on a podcast where some dude had me on as a guest to talk about it. You know, he does the Uncanny Earth. He's a really good guy. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know a thing about it, but I'm gonna do some research before I come on. I learned so much in a matter of 3 hours where I'm like, it is a good concept. But
Yeah.
the problem is you put too much faith in humanity. And humans tend to be a little bit of assholes sometimes.
Yeah.
Most of the
Well,
time.
that's it. Yeah. Yeah. There's probably more of those than the opposite. But that's it. That's an insane idea. That's the first I've ever heard of that.
Like I said, when you start doing like podcasts, like, you definitely should look into doing Zoom too, because you can use this program to get more guests on your show, especially from around. I'll come onto your podcast, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you ever want to shoot the shit about something, especially if I know you're thinking about changing the dynamic of it, but if you find out what you want to do, you can have questions, run it by me. Dude, at the first, I never thought it was going to be where it's at right now. I don't even think it's going to last another day, but every day it keeps on going.
Yeah.
The audience keeps increasing. See, the thing is, you just got to realize you got to be out there and kind of, as long as you're being able to kind of enjoy it as well. It's not creating a workload onto you to the point where you feel like you just have to create these episodes. Then it's, as long as it's fun for you, then someone's going to love that about it. Because once it feels like you're droning on, a lot of people are like, it's difficult to have just a guest you don't know on because you don't know what they're interested in. I'm like, I haven't had a problem so far. I'm pretty good at telling what people are interested in, just having conversations with people. I don't cut out anything, so there's never any dead air. I have ADHD, so it's like I have a
Okay.
million questions to ask. I can ramble on for hours.
Yeah, yeah. It's that's the thing. I suppose it's doing it for the right reasons, and I am doing it for my own reasons. But obviously, when you start to question whether anyone's even listening, I guess that's when you start thinking, oh, is it worth me doing it? But if the only thing that comes out of it is have a bit of fun, and then I get to listen back to these podcasts in years to come, and think, oh, I had some funny conversations or interesting conversations with this person, that person, then it was worth doing for that reason.
Well, hey man, I appreciate you at least taking an hour or so to be on my
No,
podcast.
that's cool.
And I want to give you a minute here at the end to promote your own stuff so people can find your awesome content.
Okay, cool. So my podcast is called the Green Room Podcast. There's a few of them out there, it seems. But mine, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on Podbean, iTunes, Acast, Castbox, Spotify, all those ones. And the podcast is kind of just me getting a friend round, sitting on the sofa, talking about a few random topics. There's a couple of funny features in there, names you wouldn't call your baby, which again was from a conversation we had at work, just like how there are certain names that kind of are dying out because they suit adults, but you just wouldn't call a baby Brian, for instance, So I asked my guest for a name each episode, things like that. And it is just me catching up with friends about things that they want to talk about and I want to talk about. But I also video it and I put just the highlights up on the Facebook page. So,
That's awesome, man. I mean, imagine calling a kid Beowulf.
Well, I've had Adolf and Megatron. I've got a friend
Megatron.
I know.
No, you're looking at that kid to kill a bear when it breaks into the.
That's my best mate. He's a big 80s and big Transformers fan, so I should have known that was coming. But there are normal ones. We've had Trevor, Brian, but we also had Adolf and
Regis.
Megatron.
You don't want to name I said Regis.
Regis,
you don't want to name like Joe or like my name Rob. It's freaking average. I don't want to be the average Joe. I want to be the freaking guy that has a name like Leonardo or something that's like difficult where I can give like a cool nickname. Like my middle name's pretty eccentric, but man,
what is it?
Oh God, I really hate saying it. It's so old. It's old style. It's called Sebastian. My middle name.
Cool.
Yeah, my mom's like, we would have called you Bass. I'm like, you know how much fucking cooler that is than Robbie? Like you would have called me Bass. She's like, yeah, that would have been your nickname. Like, yeah, it's Bass. And I'm like, that Bass or Bash, that could have been my nickname. And you called me Robbie instead. So I got picked on for being called Robbie Robertson. Thank you very much.
Oh no. Okay. I got you.
Well, my real name's Robert. So then when my teacher would say my name, she'd be like, Robert Robertson? I'm like, why are you saying it like that? Just pronounce it. Just pronounce it. It's not difficult.
That's brilliant. Robert Robertson. It shouldn't be funny, but it is.
Yeah, no. I just say the name's so nice, you say it twice. So then it's like blows off a little bit of steam off my ass.
Well, my name's dying out. The reason I started it was because it was based on a conversation where I'd seen a thing on Facebook, I think, where it was a list of names that hadn't been registered by, say, August or September anywhere in the world up to that during that year. And my name, Wayne, was on that list of names that hadn't been listed as any baby names in the world up until that far into the year.
Did you get a lot of flack from your friends when they would go, Wayne's World, Wayne's World?
A little bit.
Excellent.
Yeah. It died out sort of, over the years. But yeah, when that film was popular, I got that all the time. I still get it now occasionally.
Man, I'm telling you, dude, it's been awesome chatting with you, man, for real.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, it's been great.
Definitely, if you need like any help or anything on your podcast, let me know. I'll be more than happy to apply.
I'll definitely do it. I'll just keep in touch anyway. Just sort of keep in touch, follow your podcast and just send you the odd message every now and again, maybe.
Right on. Yeah. Send me the occasional dick pic. That's fine.
Yeah. No worries.
Well, thanks for being on this episode of Out of the Blank podcast and stay tuned for the next episode.